Welcome back to the channel. I'm Javi, and today we are analyzing Rocket Lab, who is a pioneer in the space industry. Rocket Lab has been making huge waves with its innovative approach to space access and technology. We're also diving deep into what makes them a standout in the space sector, from its launch services to its ambitious future projects, and exploring how they're shaping the future of space exploration. So buckle up because this is going to be a stellar ride. Rocket Lab is headquartered in Long Beach, California, and is not just a launch services provider, but is more of a comprehensive space systems company. So we'll go into detail about everything that they do. The first thing you notice on their webpage is that they have an announcement that says they completed their 52nd Electron launch on August 12th, which was on my birthday, and that's how I kind of know that. You can rewatch this whole thing from start to finish if you're interested in watching rockets go to space, which, that's kind of me. So, beginning with Electron, Electron has completed 52 launches to date, 192 satellites successfully deployed, and is the only reusable, capable small launch vehicle, and it has 3 dedicated launch pads. And you can go into the overview, the tech, the height, the diameter. It has 2 different stages, and you can carry a payload to low Earth orbit of up to 661 pounds or 300 kilograms. The structure carbon composite, and it has the Rutherford engine, which is smaller than the Archimedes engine. As far as Electron's reusability, Electron is the only reusable orbital class small robot. Capturing and reflying Electron's first stage enables higher launch frequency without expanding production and lowers launch costs. So you can watch this video as the first stage of the rocket comes back onto Earth. It deploys the parachute and it eventually lands in the water. And they send the boat and they pick it back up and then they refurbish it and they pretty much can use it again for other payloads to send to space. Rocket Lab is working on their Neutron rocket, which they consider their mega constellation launcher. They are estimating that it can carry up to 13,000 kilograms to low Earth orbit or 1,500 kilograms to Mars or Venus. And they are making it reusable where it can launch again and again. So here are the specs for it: 141 feet, 7 meters in diameter, payload 13,000 feet, and they are estimating that they will be using methane. So basically, one of the key features for the Neutron rocket is that it has the alligator mouth, where once it gets to low Earth orbit, it opens up the alligator and the payload pretty much comes out and stays within where the customer wants it to be placed, and the rocket comes back down onto Earth and lands vertical, and it can be reloaded again with a different payload and launched back to back. As far as performance, Neutron will feature the new Archimedes engine, which will have 9 total, and they'll use methane for the first stage, and they'll have a single vacuum Archimedes engine for the second stage. And then they have the picture here showing how the the rocket itself, which is open up, let up the payload, and it'll go back to Earth. And this is their timeline. They had their first Archimedes engine hot fire recently, and you can actually go watch that on Twitter or X. They are expecting their first launch around 2025. So we'll see how that goes. They have more news for Neutron. Let me know if you have any questions or any comments. I would love to hear what you think about the Neutron rocket. Do you think it'll actually work on the first try, or do you think we actually have to do a few tries like SpaceX did? Overall, the goal for Rocket Lab is to have a high launch cadence where they're sending rockets to space pretty much very frequent. And as you can tell here, I have a article that they published when they launched their 40th Electron mission, where they successfully flew a reused engine. So payload successfully deployed to orbit for Capella space, successful ocean splashdown of Electron's first stage, and first launch of a previously flown Rutherford engine. And that was August 24th, 2023. And I think this is why the stock has been doing pretty well, because people are now realizing that their engines are being reused now as well. So that adds a lot of value to stockholders. Moving on, moving on to the Haste program. The Haste program stands for Hypersonic Accelerator Suborbital Test Electron. And I believe this is the program that's kind of overlooked by a lot of investors because it has a lot of applications in the intelligence and defense sectors. The purpose of HASTE is designed to test new technologies and systems at very high speeds, or the hypersonic speeds, and in suborbital space just below where satellites orbit. The structure, it uses the same basic design as the Rocket Lab's Electron rocket, but it has some modifications to carry larger payloads and perform specific tasks. And it does launch from Virginia at the Wallops Flight Facility. As I said earlier, it can be used by the Defense and Intelligence Agency to test and develop new technologies quickly and cost effectively. And you can pretty much go on the website and kind of scroll down. But some of the future technologies that I could think of are advanced satellite systems. These include satellites with enhanced capabilities for communication, Earth observation, and navigation. For example, satellites that can provide high speed internet to remote areas or monitor environmental changes with greater accuracy. Space based solar power. This technology aims to collect solar energy in space and transmit it to Earth, providing a constant and renewable energy source. Space exploration vehicles. New spacecraft designed for missions to the moon, Mars, and beyond. These vehicles could carry astronauts, scientific instruments, and even habitats for long term missions. Other defense technologies I can think of are hypersonic weapons. These are missiles that travel at speeds greater than 5 times the speed of sound, or Mach 5. They can highly maneuver and can evade traditional missile defense systems. Number two, missile tracking satellites. Satellites equipped with advanced sensors to detect and track missile launches and trajectories, providing early warning and targeting data to defense systems. Number three, autonomous systems. These include drones and robotic systems that can operate independently or with minimal human intervention. They can be used for surveillance, reconnaissance, and even combat missions. And number four, quantum technologies, quantum computing and quantum communication systems that offer enhanced security and processing power for defense applications. These are just a few examples of technologies that I can think of that can make the HASTE program very important for the defense industry. And this kind of opens a new door for Rocket Lab to start working with more DoD contractors. This essentially makes Rocket Lab a defense company now, just as if it was Lockheed Martin. I don't think it's official yet, but I think that's where Rocket Lab is heading, which could potentially make Rocket Lab a $1 trillion company in the future, or just even half of SpaceX, 100 billion even. So we'll see where the Haste program goes. It does have a lot of potential, but it's also a little scary at the same time, especially with the quantum computing and quantum communication systems. Moving on to space systems, Rocket Lab offers the spacecraft components, star tracker and reaction wheels, radios, space software, separation systems, solar solutions, and composite structures. The spacecraft section has four different options. It has the option for Explorer, Lightning, Pioneer, and Photon. The Explorer offering is designed for small spacecraft missions to planetary destinations like Mars, Venus, the Moon, and highly eccentric Earth orbits such as GEO and NEO, or near Earth orbits objects. Its features, it's configurable high delta V interplanetary platform that includes various subsystems such as solar panels, star trackers, propulsion tanks, reaction wheels, and more. Some of the missions that were done through Explorer were the NASA capstone missions to the moon. Using the Explorer platform, Rocket Lab delivered a launch spacecraft solution to NASA, successfully deploying the cislunar autonomous positioning system technology operations and navigation experiment CubeSat on highly efficient transfer orbit to the moon. So this was launched in 2022. Another mission is the Venus Life Finder mission, which was a partnership with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. NASA Escapade Mars mission under the Explorer offering. Moving on to the Lightning offering. The Lightning offering is Rocket Lab's newest spacecraft bus designed for a 12 plus year orbital lifespan in low Earth orbit, or LEO. It delivers high power and high radiation tolerance, incorporating redundancy in critical subsystems. This 3 kilowatt bus is ideal for high operation duty cycle, telecommunications, and remote sensing applications. And some of the missions under the Lightning offering are the Globestar communication constellation. Rocket Lab's Lightning has been selected as the platform for 17 spacecraft buses for Globestar's new low Earth orbit satellites. Rocket Lab is the prime contractor for a $515 million contract with the Space Development Agency to lead the design, development, production, test, and operation of the 18 satellites for the Tranche 2 Transport Layer Beta. The constellation will use a tailored Lightning platform. Cool. Next, we have the Pioneer platform. The Pioneer is highly configurable medium delta V platform designed to support payloads of up to 120 kilograms and unique mission profiles, including re-entry missions for Varda Space Industries and dynamic space operations. Some of the features include power, communication, propulsion, and attitude control, depending on what the mission is. Some of the missions are Varda Space Industries, where they launched capsule into space to pretty much develop medications for HIV because space offers a unique environment to grow medications or to develop some type of medication for HIV. The last one is Photon. Photon is Rocket Lab's integrated launch plus spacecraft solution. It is modified Electron kick stage with power, propulsion, and communication to deliver a capable low Earth orbit platform. Some of the features for Photon serve civil, defense, and commercial customers across a range of missions. It includes power, communications, propulsion, and attitude control systems. Some of the mission Rocket Lab has been selected by ETA Space to use Electron and Photon to conduct a flight demonstration of a complete cryogenic fluid management system in orbit for NASA. Essentially build, launch, and test a cryogenic fuel depot in low Earth orbit. So that concludes the spacecraft section. We can move on to some of the financials because the space systems, we can go into detail for each one, but I think it's kind of redundant because we can cover most of them in the financials. As you can tell here, the space systems accounts for 76.9 million or 72% of the revenue, and the launch section accounts for 29.4, which accounts for the rest. Overall, they had a 71% year-on-year revenue increase, a 15% quarter-on-quarter revenue increase, with a total revenue in quarter 2 24 of 106 million. Other key takeaways from their earnings report was this part right here when Peter Beck was saying that right now they deliver launch and spacecraft to those who provide space data and services, pretty much positioning themselves to own that as well. By owning the ride to orbit and the spacecraft, they're at a distinct advantage of establishing their own in-space capabilities for space data and services. Another key takeaway was that they signed 17 new Electron launches, which are equivalent to 141 million total contract value. Electron is the third most frequently launched rocket globally in 24. Previously was the fourth. 100% increase in launch rate from quarter 2 23 to quarter 1 24. And Electron counts for 64% of non SpaceX orbital US launches in 24 so far. So Rocket Lab signed multi-launch contracts with commercial constellation operators, 10 with Synspective, and 4 launches with confidential commercial customers. Another thing to point out is that Rocket Lab is a trusted partner for the DoD for launch and space systems. They were selected to design and build a spacecraft, then launch it on Electron within just 24 hours' notice for the United States Space Force Space Systems Command, which is a validation for their model as an end to end space company. They also have a new Haste contract dedicated to suborbital mission for the US government customer. There are now 7 Haste missions on the manifest, confirming growing market demand for the hypersonic test launches. Some important facts to point out for Neutron and why they're working on it. The demand is strong and growing from constellations alone. More than 10,000 satellites need launch services by 2030. So with Neutron, they're well positioned to capitalize on a 10 billion launch total addressable market in record time. And they have this chart kind of indicating how fast they've been able to reach the market compared to their competitors. So Falcon 9, which is the third on this list, reached their rocket development timelines in 4.8 years, and they're expecting that Neutron will be reaching their milestones within 4.3 years. All in all, Rocket Lab is doing so much right now, and I think that's why their stock price is going up drastically right now. So Neutron flat hardware in production and qualification for 100% of the vehicle. So that includes the computers and avionics, stage 1 tanks, stage 1 structure, the Archimedes engine, and even the Large Complex 3 is in the works. They completed the hot fire engine test, which is a major program milestone, and the engine performed at a 102% throttle. They also started producing the next engines. Engine 2 is coming off the production line, and they have the next 5 in production. Another big announcement they made was the automated composites production, which pretty much is what lays the fiber in place, which is saving 150,000 hours per vehicle. As far as space systems, they mentioned that more than 720 million in contract value of satellites in development, production, and operation. So as you can tell, they list pretty much some of their client, the Space Force being one of them, BARDA Space, NASA, Viasat, and Globestar. They completed on twin satellites for NASA Mars mission. So they had 2 tailored satellites designed, built, and tested in just 3 years from contracted award. It's a vertical integration strategy at work. Both the satellites include solar cell, reaction wheels, star trackers, separation systems, radios, and flight software. Scheduled for launch on the Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket before the Mars transit window closes later this year. Another thing to note here is that they're expanding their space solar manufacturing. They agreed to a preliminary term for 49.4 million in proposed federal and state local incentives, including the CHIPS Act funding. And they're continuing their partnership with Varda Space for in-space pharmaceutical processing. They introduced a next generation satellite dispenser, which is a continued innovation from their merchant component business. They're building this advanced satellite dispenser unveiled at the Small Satellite Conference in Logan, Utah. It's cost effective, versatile, and reliable deployment mechanism for small satellites, built upon their heritage canistered satellite dispenser technology, which has deployed more than 60 satellites over 11 years. They included this slide to kind of show their vision as an end-to-end space company because they have the separation systems, the satellite radios, the reaction wheels, the solar arrays, composite structures, in-space propulsion, flight software, and star trackers. Even Peter Beck was mentioning the show on HBO called Wild Wild Space. I will probably watch this later. So finally, closing out with the financials, review of operating expenses quarter on quarter. So their GAAP SG&A expense increased primarily due to increase in staff costs and stock-based compensation following their annual merit cycle. Their GAAP R&D expense increased due to the step up in Neutron development spending due to ramp up of Archimedes testing and development along with continued investment in composite structures. their non-GAAP free cash flow and adjusted EBITDA. Cash consumed from purchase of property, equipment, and software decreased 3.8 million sequentially due to the timing of delivery and of equipment associated with Neutron research, testing, and production infrastructure. Cash consumed from operation increased 10.4 million sequentially, driven primarily by working capital. Adjusted EBITDA loss improved zero point 0.5 million sequentially due to the record revenues, largely offset by increased Neutron program costs. Some other financial outlooks for quarter 3 24 revenue outlook, they expect revenue to range between 100 million to 105 million. They expect space systems revenue of 79 million to 84 million. Currently anticipate a launch service revenue of approximately 21 million. They expect a GAAP gross margin to range between 25 to 27%, driven by a favorable mix between launch and space systems, offset by reduced launch cadence. They expect a non-GAAP gross margin of 30 to 32%. For quarter 3 24 GAAP and non-GAAP operating expenses, they expect a GAAP operating expense of 80 million to 82 million and expect a non-GAAP operating expenses of 69 million to 71 million. They expect a net interest expense of 1 million and their adjusted EBITDA loss of 31 million to 33 million. Their basic weighted average shares outstanding of 498 million shares. Some of their upcoming investor events: Morgan Stanley Laguna Conference, September 11 to 13. They also have the World Space Business Week, September 16 to 20. KeyBank Capital Markets, Virtual NDR, September 26th. And Satellite Innovations, which is October 22nd. I do own the shares for Rocket Lab. I am a long-term holder for the stock. I bought more shares today. I'm averaging $4.22 for the stock, and I do hope that they do well. Their biggest risk still remains to be Neutron because it can take a lot of capital to get it going. But once they get it to work, I think this stock could have a lot of potential. And that's not even including the Haste program. The Haste program, I think, will also drive the company to be valued closer to 100 billion, probably half of SpaceX. But it could even overtake SpaceX down the line, especially if they get more defense contracts and they develop more weapons and stuff. So I do believe in the stock and I like the CEO of the stock. So we'll see how it goes. Make sure you leave a comment, like, and share. And see you in the next video.